Hey, this is Sid Von Engeland of the Von Englands, and you're listening to Wrestling Cheers.
Taking your way in the world today takes everything you got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You want to go where you can see that troubles are all the same. You want to go where everybody knows your name.
And welcome back to Wrestling Cheers, where everybody knows your name, especially when you're British. This is Wrestling Cheers, where we like to talk about things going on in the Northeast Ohio independent wrestling scene. We preview shows, we review shows, and sometimes we even have interviews along the way. This is an interview with Sid Von Engeland. I'm your host, Justin Summers, and Wrestling Cheers is brought to you by the Trending Topics Network and Midwest Territory. Please rate, review, and subscribe your ever listens to fine podcasts, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Amazon Music, or Podbean, WrestlingCheers.podbean.com. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, Facebook.com/WrestlingCheers, Twitter.com/WrestlingCheers, at Instagram.com/WrestlingCheers. Email, if you so choose to desire, WrestlingCheers@gmail.com, and we have the merch store over at whatamanoeuvre.net. Like I said, this is an interview with Sid Von Engeland, and we have him on the line. Sid, how's it going this evening?
Hey, Justin, I'm doing, you know, as good as I can be. I just, I very recently got a new personal trainer, and his workout's been putting me through the ringer a little bit. So this is day 3, and I'm ice packed up while I speak to you. So I'm doing. How about you? Well,
has he taught you how to drive yet?
No, I think when the muscle relaxants kick in, I think it'd be too dangerous for me to ever learn to drive. So at this point, I think I should just use Eden as my personal Uber for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's one little fact that I happen to kind of remember from my interview with them. Thought maybe you would have gotten your license by now or figured out how to drive, but
well, I guess enough time's passed. But we'll get there. Maybe when I'm back in the UK, I'll learn to drive there and then have to translate.
Oh God, can't even imagine that. I eventually want to go over there, but I can't imagine like being thrown into this different style of driving. I'm not even just talking about other side of the road thing, but like different signs and like all this other like language that I'm not used to.
So I mean, a lot of it's kind of the same anyway. And when we first came over, when Eden was driving, a lot of it was just me kind of reminding them to stay on this side of the road and turn and jump up and like go over the I don't know what you call it, the 4-way crossings, but like it's over, turn over and left, stay in the right lane rather than, and I mean, we don't have things like you can't turn right on red, but I guess that's a state-by-state thing anyway. We still use miles per hour, but most cars are stick shift, so that's the only the big thing. But and American roads are laid out a lot nicer as well than UK roads. UK roads are a lot of kind of winding streets, and you have to stay on the right side, on the left side of the road, the correct side of the road, I should say. Whereas at least here, you know, there's like every freeway and highway has like 4 lanes that only go in one direction. So just join that and you're fine, or join the wrong one and not be fine.
Yeah, that would. Well, there's signs that say wrong way.
Yeah,
and all that kind of stuff. Like, hopefully that like helps you. Actually, I didn't.
Yeah.
Didn't Eden have a story where he went down the wrong way?
We've done a couple of things when it always happens when we're coming, kind of leaving from a show, or it's kind of late. So twice from this venue in like Franklin, Ohio, we'll just leave the parking lot and turn onto the left side of the road. And I won't clock it until we see a car coming over the verge, and I'm like, oh, let's just make sure we get in the right lane. But recently we dropped someone back at their place after a show, and they lived on the left side of the road. And I mean, we pulled out and just kept driving for about maybe 4 miles. And they're like, oh wait, there's some oncoming headlights there. Let's just make sure we don't die. So it's still, at this point, it's been 9 months we've been in the country, and we're still making that slight faux pas. So when we go back in December, I'm hoping for the best, but I trust Eden.
That's what I was thinking. They're going to be so used to being on the right side of the road that when you're actually in where you're used to, you do the wrong thing. Like,
yeah, that's I mean, I'm a really anxious person anyway, a really anxious passenger. So I think I'll be really on it and heightened and making sure that we're going in the right lanes, the correct lanes, the left lanes. But I'm also hoping that the novelty of us being home means a lot of our friends will want to pick us up and take us places and do things with us. So if we can limit the drive, then that's great.
Are you looking forward to that trip back to England?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing now is because it's the kind of the first one that we're allowed with the whole travel restrictions now being changed. It just kind of means that much more. And even though we're going to, be in Ohio for a few more years at the very least, and we can definitely travel home kind of whenever we want from that point. We're already looking at a couple of weeks we could do in the UK in the summer and so on. It's just kind of good to see everyone. I mean, like one of the last things we did before we came out was it was my birthday, maybe 2 days before we flew out. So that's I guess the theme is just celebrations and stuff. I mean, obviously we have so many people that we want to see because we're so popular. It's just kind of trying to fit it all in. But we'll see how it goes. And like I said, we know we can go back kind of whenever we want. It just means if we do miss someone out this time, we'll get them again next time.
What is it that you miss the most about England?
So this is a weird thing, but there's a couple of things. But the one thing I think of right now, because it's part of my PT's plan, is so in England we walk everywhere. I mean, we don't walk everywhere, but we walk everywhere really. So if something's a mile and a half, 2 miles away, we'll just walk there probably, because we could drive there, but there'll be traffic. We can walk there as well. Whereas here, if you step outside your house to walk anywhere but to your car, people look at you like you're crazy. I drove through old Brooklyn and I counted over like a 10-minute drive, four pedestrians, like 4 active pedestrians. So I like walking. It's kind of quite peaceful. I miss that. I mean, food's like an easy one. Like, there's all the cliche ones like, oh, I miss my friends, but whatever. I miss the food, I guess. But it's one of those things where the slight conveniences that you have back home that you don't realize until you need them. I mean, there's like a weird one as well. Like, so our bedding in the UK, I'm so boring. I'm so sorry. Our bedding in the UK, we use fine. Instead of a comforter, like a duvet and a kind of a cover. And like for the longest time, I was like, comforters are really weird, aren't they? But now I'm like, I'm going to really miss having that comforter when I go back to the UK, because I have to now get essentially a comforter and put like a big sheet around it. And it's just, so I think what I'm trying to say is I really miss nothing about the UK. I hate it and I hate everyone there. Controversial.
That's the real British side of you then.
Yeah. The cynicism coming through.
Yeah, I think with the walking thing, it just depends on where you're at here. Like, I think if you're in New York City, that's something where like a lot of people walk.
Yeah.
I think if you're downtown of certain cities, it's a lot of walking. Like, I know I've spent like a weekend in Chicago, and it was, in between walking and, taking public transportation.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily about driving. And like, there were times like, okay, it was like trying to plan stuff, or was, okay, we got to walk this far to the station, take it to this exit, and then walk so far back from the train station. Yeah. And they wouldn't necessarily be like that close. It might be a mile or two.
Yeah. I mean, we have a similar thing with London, like with the underground train and stuff. It's sometimes there are people who do things on YouTube where they'll race the subway. They'll have a friend get on at one station and they'll walk to the other station just as quick a time. And it's one of those things where truly London is the ultimate. Do I want to walk or do I want the convenience of not? But it takes just as much time kind of everywhere you go. So I mean, when we lived downtown in Cleveland very briefly when we did move here. And yeah, just thinking about that, you're right. It's just that was such a busy area. I mean, that's where you have things like CSU. You have all three sports stadiums there as well. I guess it really is a busy place to be.
Yeah, like even here soon I'll be going to, well, it will be technically the next Browns game, not the one as we're recording tomorrow, as in also the day that this should be released, but the next one after that we're going, and we're told that the only place our bus could get a reservation to park at, and like we're leaving at a decent time in the morning, is like about a mile walk away from, actually like a mile and a half walk away from the stadium. And like my first reaction was like, fuck, I don't want to walk that. Literally, I was looking at hotels that close to the area, like close to the stadium. Like I'll just go there. But then of course there's the whole thing of the Rock Hall inductions are the same weekend. So that got thrown right out the window. Yeah. But like my first reaction was like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to walk that. But I think it's more of like not walking there, because walking there is fine because I'm excited. But after the game,
yeah, because it's Steelers, right?
Yeah,
I mean, Brown's discourse this week just because of everyone on the injured list. Grumble. But I mean, it is the Steelers, right? They are the worst team in the AFC South, so we'll see. Anyway,
back to walking.
Back to walking. Yeah, I feel like a mile is generally a manageable walk, but you're right. It's a case of, I mean, even if it's a win, right, and you're exhausted from having a fun time, and you've been eating, drinking and stuff, like that mile and a half walk it's just so unnecessary, and you'll get it when you get there. I used to when I was a kid, and I'd do go to concerts in London that would finish at 1 a.m. and I'd do like maybe they'd close half of the public transport after midnight, and I remember I'd have to walk maybe a mile to the next bus, which would then take me to a subway station that would then take me to a train station that would then take me to the train station in my town, but would then be a 45-minute walk home. And the grown-up in me now just wonders where I had the time to do any of those things. So I think I'm very much in the camp with you where I wouldn't want to walk an extra, because that'd be like an extra 15 minutes, maybe or 20. And then if you're feeling sluggish, and this is me talking after, how many steps did I do today? 7,712. Yeah, I hate walking.
How many steps did you say you took?
7,712 today.
I don't think mine's that high. I was at 6,321.
Nice. Yeah, he keeps telling me to hit 10,000. I'll do my best. He won't listen to this anyway, so it's fine. I'll tell him I did 10,000. It'll be fine. He won't check.
I don't know if I've had to have done 10,000 steps, because I haven't started looking at that until recently. Like when I got my new job, it's like I drive shorter distances, but I'm in and out of my truck a lot. So those steps like just add up.
Yeah.
And I've looked at it more now because I'm like, oh, like I can actually see like how much more I'm exercising and not even like trying to, and like how much more, because like using like the Apple Watch and everything, I'm now like on my feet just a whole lot more. I'm burning a lot more calories. So I've actually looked at that, like where I've gone back to like days from my previous job, like how many steps did I take this day? Okay, now how many did I take today? Oh, that's a big difference.
It's like for me, I mean, when I was back home, any job I worked was me on my feet all day. So I think if I ever went back to look at those, a year, 2 years ago, or 2 years ago because COVID, they'd be like double what I've done now. But now I spend so much time doing next to nothing kind of at home. It's all work from home stuff now that, I feel like any opportunity I get to like even just step outside and maybe walk between rooms makes all the difference. So I imagine it's the same with you and taking those extra moments.
Yeah, it's just like a bunch of little bursts of walking adding up all day. Yeah. So I think that's the other part of it, of like not wanting to walk that mile and a half. I think even too, like I think of like after AIW, going from the Odeon to that after party, And like I was maybe
up that hill.
Yeah, I was like halfway up, and I was like, "Fuck this!" Like I still went the rest of the way, but I was like, "Fuck this! This sucks." And it is that incline. Like,
I mean, we every time we go, we forget to bring like a change of clothes for going out essentially. So when we basically leave the Odeon, drive home, drive back, but all the areas closed off on a Friday night, so then we have to park further away than we normally do, and then walk all that distance to the Odeon, then up the hill. Again, where do I find the time to do these things? Why are we walking everywhere? Maybe I'm wrong. My analogy about no one walking anywhere is just a load of shit, isn't it? Really?
Well, I think like depending on where, like I said, where you are, it's like if I'm going to go a mile from where I am right now, like at my home, I'm going to drive.
Yeah.
But if you are in like more of a city where I think it comes down to like parking, like,
yeah, that's true.
Being able to park a lot of cars in some of those areas is next to impossible, or it's like very expensive to where it's like, yeah, it makes more sense. Like, oh, if I got to go a mile down the road to, go to the store, I'll just, walk that mile.
Yeah. I
know another place that I experienced like that, like walking up like that hill and just feeling my legs burn apart. And I believe you guys have been there, the Cleveland Zoo.
Yeah. Oh, because that's weird. I think it's such a small incline, the entire thing. And it's all hills when it's not. You don't realize it at first until maybe 20, 25 minutes in. And you go, oh, wait a minute. This is supposed to be a relaxing thing.
I think the worst part about the Cleveland Zoo, because if those of you who don't know, it's the way I always describe it, it's like a V, and the V's on a hill, where the base point, and you can either walk up a side or take a little, I don't want to say train, but like a little, you can take transportation up to the top, and then walk back. But it's just it just depends on which way you want to do it. Last time I was there, it's the left side. I'll always say this: take it both ways. Because there's like a stretch of nothing.
Yes.
And I decided, because we were kind of in a rush, because actually we had to get to Wrestle Rager, trying to make like a day of like being in Cleveland.
Right.
And there was like a line to get up get in the train for the left side. I was like, fuck this, we're walking. There's like no reason to wait.
Yeah.
And literally like I had to like take a break halfway up just because my legs were killing me. And I was like, oh, I regret this so much.
Yeah. I'd completely forgotten about that specific hill as well, at the zigzagging ramp. That ridiculous. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about the zigzagging ramp because I think when I was there, that this last time, which was a handful of years ago, I think that was under construction, so you actually had to either take the transportation back down or walk down that hill.
And yeah, so even I had it easier, and it's still not great.
So what did you think of our zoo?
So when we went, it was, I don't remember when we went. I think maybe it was July or August, but a lot of the exhibits were closed, which was kind of a surprise to me. The zoo itself, size-wise, is great, and there's, in theory, there's a bunch of good exhibits. It'd just be nice to see them all next time. So people tell me one of the other sea, I don't know if it's Columbus or Cincy, has a really nice zoo as well. So I guess at some point we'll compare and contrast. But it was fun, and we live kind of close to it now anyway. So it's it's somewhere that we could spend our time. That's somewhere I could walk to, I guess.
They might be talking about the Columbus Zoo. I think there's a Cincinnati Zoo. I'm not 100% sure. There almost has to be, but
I might be confused with Jungle Jim's department store, which is ridiculous if you've ever been there.
I think I've heard of Jungle's. Is that the one with the train going through the top?
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah, I just seen a TikTok about it.
Yeah, it's a crazy place. The guy bought, I guess it was a monorail from one of the Disney parks or something when they were not constructing them, and just put it in a parking lot and then built like a giant store under it, I guess. I don't really know how to explain it other than that's what it is. But it's cool, I guess.
But no, Columbus does have a pretty good zoo.
That's cool.
I thoroughly enjoy Cleveland. I don't go to zoos a lot because I feel like it's mostly the same things. So you have to like space out when you go. Like obviously go to different ones. I love how Cleveland is set up like that V, and Columbus is set up. I don't know how to describe it, where there's kind of a center area, and then there's like little, I want to describe them as circles, because basically when you walk through everything, it's like every circle around the center is themed, and you'll walk around that particular track or whatever, look at whatever is fitting into that theme, or whether it be like aquarium and kind of that area. But like you can see the zoo in your own way.
Yeah.
Like with Cleveland, and it just depends on whether you go up or down each side. And then I always say like, I don't like it. I've only been there once. I believe the Pittsburgh Zoo, I swear it's basically one circle. Like you just start and you either pick which way you want to go. And yeah, it's like you're going to see the zoo in one form or the other, and it's just going to be forward or backwards.
This is our story that we want to tell with the zoo, and you're going to enjoy it our way.
Yeah, pretty much. But I do like Columbus's. I think the first time I went there too, we went in November, and I mean, granted, like some of the stuffs was closed, or just like animals, I should say, weren't out. I mean, they weren't necessarily closed, and there wasn't snow out, so it was enjoyable to be there. But also we went in the middle of the week, so like there was next to nobody there, so it was like kind of peaceful.
Yeah, I think we went just outside of the summer vacation, so that there were no kids there. It was nice and quiet, but then I guess that's when the exhibits were also not open because there was no one there. So, but
I think it depends on the zoo. I don't know if there's a time where like every animal's out, because some it just depends on the temperature. Some it's like it's some, for some animals it's too hot, the other ones it's too cold, and I don't know if there's a perfect middle ground.
I mean, like the good thing is a lot of the indoor exhibits they have were open because I guess they're acclimatized properly. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what I haven't seen, but I guess I'll know when I see it.
So how up are you on the MCU right now?
We haven't seen What If, but everything else I think we've seen.
I have not seen What If either. I need to watch it. I think with Amanda, like with it not being like directly connected, I don't know if it makes sense for her to watch it.
Right.
But I know I think I've heard like basically they're all kind of connected, of like all the What If stuff, but I don't know if anything will be connected outside of it. So
yeah, that's kind of what I heard too. Sorry.
No, that's fine. So it's like, I definitely, I mean, I want to sit down and watch it no matter what. I thought that even just the premise of What If, when I first heard about it, was great. I didn't think they would go this route. I thought it was not these bigger what ifs. It was going to be smaller what ifs. Like, what if, what was a great example I've used before of, I can't think of one right now. Just basically like, we didn't take a left, we took a right type thing.
Yeah, like slight changes, not like, what if this character was never born? It's what if when they travel back in time in Endgame, they travel back to the wrong time or something like that? It's like, oh, they've now have to figure that out. But yeah, it's too big of things. Like, what if I think the premise of the episode so far are basically like, what if this person was someone else? Like, what if Captain America was Peggy? What if Star-Lord was Black Panther?
Mm-hmm.
What if Doctor Strange was bad? It's I guess there's a market for it, but it's just the problem with that kind of format is you need to understand the original material to then appreciate the new material. And like for me as a consumer, I think material should be able to stand up on its own without needing supporting material, which is why Shang-Chi is one of the best Marvel films and Black Panther is the other one, like my two favorite Marvel films, because even without the MCU, they stand up as good.
I think with Shang-Chi, it's my favorite Marvel movie outside of anything Avengers and Captain America.
Oh yes. So I mean, yeah, Winter Soldier's like the best. I have this thing where I like to justify liking a lot of things because it's cool to like things. But I have this thing where I'm like, well, I think things that are my favorite might not necessarily be the best as well. So I think Winter Soldier is probably the best MCU film, but my favorite is like Black Panther. Like, because I can appreciate that, like, there are things about these films that make them really, really good for everyone, right? You know,
Yeah.
like, we can all agree that like Incredible Hulk maybe doesn't count, but I'm sure it's someone's favorite for some reason.
I think like everything from Iron Man 1 to Thor 2 kind of has to be graded just a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Mainly because like Iron Man 1 does not have the same feel as Winter Soldier. But it was them like finding like the way they wanted to do things, and it took a lot of like, I don't want to say trial and error, but it was just like it was evolution, because like going up from Iron Man 1 to Avengers was awesome. I'll never forget that ride. And then they were like, oh, we have to pivot out of this, and they knew they wanted to go towards Thanos, and Thor 2 and Iron Man 3 were they're what?
They're films.
I look at them as they've been served as filler, but like for kind of like stuff you would need later. I mean, maybe that's writers going back and picking stuff from, but it like takes some valuable things from them. Or like I look at Iron Man 3, it was Iron Man going through post-traumatic stress from Avengers. So like it was like his fallout, like stuff he had to deal with. And then with Thor 2, that was when they first officially mentioned the Infinity Stones. And like that was started to be the pivot, because everything after that was kind of started to concentrate around that and tell the bigger story. So like, are those going to be on people's, favorite MCU movies? No, normally those are like towards the bottom with the Hulk.
Yeah.
But they served a purpose. And same thing with Ultron. Like, I remember for me, I think I said when that movie came out, I'm like, this just feels like the prequel for Civil War. Like that's what we're really waiting for. And as great as that movie was, I mean, it kind of what Ultron seemed to be, but I will give them a lot of credit. They've pulled a lot of stuff from that, and they were able to tell a better, bigger story for like a lot of the stuff afterwards.
Yeah, because that's the thing is we'll never know if, because that's part of what makes especially Endgame so great is just the callbacks, and it's the whole rewarding your fans for paying attention. It's it's the other flip side of the coin of media being able to stand on its own. Is it should be able to stand on its own, but you should also reward your viewers for paying attention and caring, right? Like everything in Endgame that is a callback to something, just it's great. And even things like in Shang-Chi with the callback in there. I mean, Shang-Chi is relatively new, so spoiler free. But with that, it's such a minor callback. But like again, if you've not seen the film, okay, doesn't change anything. It's still just a piece of the story. If you have seen the film, it's incredible. It's such a good moment and such a good beat. But again, we wouldn't have necessarily got that without a lackluster film in the MCU.
I'm hearing some good things about Eternals, and that's kind of I don't want to say surprising. It's just a lot of people are going into this like, oh my god, like this might be the first bomb. But I'm like, we said the same thing about so many movies. It's like going back to Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, I don't think Eternals is going to hit like Guardians did, because there was just so many like great things coming together for that movie. But I think one of the things I've heard, like it's not necessarily spoiler related, but like it also doesn't feel like an MCU movie. Like it's going to explore some different elements, which that's kind of what Shang-Chi did. And that's I going back to like just like watching Shang-Chi in the theater, I was getting real excited of just how different it felt, and like going into a more I want to say like a Chinese history, but like doing like a little bit more to martial arts and everything. I'm like, oh my god, like this is so much fun. Like this doesn't even have to be a MCU movie. Like it feels like an older new age kung fu movie. Yeah,
and that I think it's what I hoped for going into it, is that it was going to not feel like a superhero movie, and it definitely didn't. It didn't feel like an MCU movie at all, and I think that really is what made it so good. Again, the same with Black Panther. I mean, even though it wasn't massively reviewed well, Captain Marvel as well. Captain Marvel, it doesn't feel like a typical MCU movie. And I think like we were saying about when you have that kind of midpoint that's bridging between the phase 1 and phase 3, there's so many, also known as phase 2, there's so many of these things that it's almost formulaic because, we need to do these things to make the films work because that's kind of what worked, because we've found ourselves after trying loads of stuff in phase 1, and then when they realized that there kind of isn't a formula because people are different, superheroes are different, and they just lent into this idea that they can go whole ham in solo movies they can make it completely unique to the character. Like Ant-Man is incredible because it's a heist movie, because Ant-Man's a small-time criminal. Great, that's what you want. Whereas I think if they played Ant-Man off as a good guy needs to save the world to get the girl, which is the kind of formula of superhero movies, it wouldn't have hit any of the beats. And again, I'm not saying that Ant-Man's blown anyone's socks off and it's not topping many people's lists, but yeah, it does a good job of just being itself unashamedly. And like I feel like Eternals is going to do that as well. Like you said, it's probably not going to hit like Guardians did, but Guardians had the 80s nostalgia, had the color palette was so unique. It was the first kind of foray into space for Marvel as well, because Asgard doesn't really count. And I think as long as Eternals manages to not fall into the trap of being like anything else, I think it'll be really good. I'm really excited for it. I'm interested to see how the power creep's gonna work and how strong they're all gonna be compared to the MCU, the other characters in the MCU. But if we're getting Kang the Conqueror, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all ahead of itself and speculating and rah rah rah. I just want a Silver Samurai movie. That's all I want.
The movie that I'm looking forward to right now the most for the MCU is Doctor Strange. That just got pushed back, I think, 2 months. But everything that they've built a lot into that movie, so it feels way bigger than others. And we still got Spider-Man in between that, which is going to add to it too.
Yeah, again, those are two where Doctor Strange just feels like a fever dream. Like everything just feels weird and it's perfect because he's Stephen Strange, and just I was surprised about the whole pushback. Number one, that pushed all the dates back, but I'm also very excited for Spider-Man because it obviously ties so heavily into Doctor Strange, and there's and we can speculate that WandaVision is going to tie into Doctor Strange quite a lot too, and possibly Loki's going to tie into Doctor Strange. They've ticked off they've set off a lot of light bulbs in so many people's heads that at this point it'll be interesting to see what does get paid off, because there's every chance that Spider-Man leaves us with more questions, and there's every chance that Spider-Man solves everything, and then we never get the strange WandaVision or the strange Loki crossover that seems to be on the cards.
I mean, I thought it was confirmed that Wanda's going to be in Doctor Strange.
Yes, I know she's on the poster at least, but I mean, I have ideas in my head about how Spider-Man's going to be resolved around changing timelines and what that means for. I mean, Scarlet Witch is a Nexus being, and so technically she shouldn't be affected by anything if there are any changes in time. And I mean, again, the comic book speculation of that. But I go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that they potentially pushed it back just to space out their year. There's part of me that thinks some of the times that these movies have been pushed back, they just threw it there like, whatever, we'll deal with it later. And when that one was coming out in March, to me, that was a little weird because if I'm correct, not a lot of MCU movies come out in March.
No, I feel like Black Widow in April was a weird one anyway. I feel like they had something at the start of the year and then it's the summer blockbusters, and that's kind of their plan. Well,
if they do April, it's the end of April, because for many years, Marvel as a whole, and that's counting some of the Fox properties, was always kicking off May, for right around the time for Comic Book Day. So it made sense that those movies were coming out. And then when they moved Infinity War back, or up a week technically, that started a trend of like, oh, like we'll come out in April now, like end of April. We'll start off the summer movie season like a week early. And then like in the summer, they would have like an additional one in the middle.
Right.
Because after Infinity War, it was Ant-Man and the Wasp, and after Endgame was Spider-Man. Which, like, going to the opposite side of like those movies, I don't know, I gotta sit down and like really rewatch them. But I'm not big on Black Panther and Captain Marvel, but it's only because they were the appetizer for the main course meal that I really, really wanted.
Yes.
Like, I remember, like, my point of watching Black Panther, I mean, granted, I love watching them all, but I thought this was going to be where they revealed where the Soul Stone was. So with Infinity War, we then knew, every place Thanos was going to have to go.
Yes.
And like when that didn't show up, it was like, well, fuck.
Yeah.
And then with Endgame and Captain Marvel, like, I think I've had someone explain this to me. They were like, well, I didn't have to worry about her dying because obviously if Nick Fury paged her, we knew she's okay. But I'm like, I don't know, still, there's a background story. But I think for still, no matter what, I'm like, I couldn't wait for Endgame. Like,
yeah, I
love Thanos. Thanos is like one of my favorite characters of all time. And literally, like, Infinity War was just the Thanos movie. So I loved it. And when they actually did the snap, I was very happy.
Yeah, because again, like with Ultron especially, Ultron serves such a huge purpose in the comics, and for him to get the one movie treatment kind of is a bit of a disservice, and it kind of made me worry about Thanos. But then Thanos got his appearance in the post credits of, was it Civil War?
No, he was in the post credits of Age of Ultron.
There we go. Yeah, and then he gets his 2-movie cycle as well, and and he's still a threat in other movies. They still discuss what he did across other movies. Like they really gave him kind of what he needed to, because he's such an important character to comic history. Like the Infinity Gauntlet comics are like some of the most popular comics of all time.
I think the cool thing with Thanos too, the build of just even going back to, he got the end credits for Avengers, and then he got an okay size role for Guardians of the Galaxy. And then we go fast forward to Age of Ultron, where that was the final do it myself. And then we don't really see him until Infinity War, but it was still, they didn't fast track anything. They didn't try to shoehorn it. They really let it build, and they built so many stories alongside it, with it. And I think that's kind of where DC fucks up, because they don't have the patience to tell these stories. Like even, phase 1 of like do the whole build up for the Avengers. Like they made sure like everything was in place to have it pay off, and then to have a bigger payoff. Like, all right, let's do a Thanos story and we'll build it from there. And yeah, it took a lot, to the point to where we got to Endgame, and we got to, hands down, one of my favorite movie moments that I've just being in the theater for, was Avengers Assemble. Like just everybody coming back, and that's years of movies and being invested in these characters. If it was, something done early on, like why would you care that all these characters were dusted and coming back? Like, no, we had to get invested into it. Like,
again, it's the whole rewarding your viewers for what they've seen, and you're right. It's Marvel did this great job of making you care about every character as well, and it's not even the main characters. I mean, characters like Wong is such a fan favorite despite being a comic relief character, and he is such a big part of that. I'm just thinking through like Valkyrie, just all these little bit part characters that are just appearing, and they all get their moment at that one final battle. And like, how are they going to top it? How are they going to top it with Kang? And then how are they going to top Kang inevitably with who are they going to top Kang with?
Galactus?
Yeah. Phase 7.
I mean, the way that the MCU like tell stories is, and this is just the way I've perceived it, is they like set a benchmark, and then once they get there, they widen the standard a little bit. They make it bigger, and I feel like that's like where we are now after, like, cause really after Endgame, I was like, how the hell are you going to top this? Oh, we're going to do some TV shows. something we've never really done before. Well, they have, but like we're going to put them into the universe. We're going to put the big stars in it. We're still going to do movies, but we're going to get you like invested into these shows. We're going to make them appointment viewing. We're only going to put out one a week, but you're going to still love it. I mean, that's what they did with WandaVision. That's what they did with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That's what they did with Loki. And because of like everything they've done with it, and they've taken a lot of the stakes and the concepts and making it bigger and bigger. Like we didn't just come right out the rip and then go, all right, multiverse. Like they've done a real big way of building for it, even like technically teasing it with Far From Home.
Yeah, like because even then it was a case of they've built so much suspense at this point that you expected. Because when was Far From Home? 2000 was that 2019 or was it 2020? Either way, 2019
because I saw it in the theater.
Yeah, by that point, we're talking 2 years ago. At that point, that's when we were already considering, we're gonna split things off and have all these other characters, but the universes come in. That's a real thing that we've now alluded to at this point in time. We're now sat in a position where possibly 2022 is when there'll be that payoff, because we don't even know if there will be a payoff in the new Spider-Man film. Like, there obviously there's the things that the Alpha Molina, Doc Ock and stuff, but just because he's there doesn't necessarily mean that he's Tobey Maguire's Doc Ock as well and all this. And I feel like there could be a lot of bait and switches. And I mean, have you? And again, I don't know how spoiler free we can be, but have you seen that non-Marvel property film?
Yes,
I'm probably spoiling. Yeah, right. With that as well, I feel there's so many bait and switches going on right now. But it could be me and my wrestling fan brain that's just, think I just see Vince Russo all over this. Because you're right in that they've done such a good job of building up to these things and teasing them and planting all these seeds that they're going to have to pay off eventually. But for every time they don't, it just makes it mean that much more.
And like they're adding like just new concepts and everything. Like everything with Shang-Chi, it sounds like everything we're going to get with Eternals. And obviously, even Loki added a bunch of actually everything. Like a lot of these the Marvel shows have added like something new to where when we like whatever we get to officially the next big thing, like there's just going to be so much.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I love. And I thought the rumor even coming into this particular phase is they were going to have like 3 different big bad guys, but they were going to be like, one was going to be more Earthbound, the other one was going to be space, and then I forgot the third one might have been Quantum Realm.
I could believe that, because
actually that's another aspect of this whole thing, the Quantum Realm with the next Ant-Man too.
The other, because I was thinking about this because I was trying to figure out who the possible kind of earthly villain could be. And I was just thinking, because they're very clearly setting up Secret Avengers, like I think without explicitly saying Secret Avengers at this point.
Yeah, I think that's the Earthbound one.
Yeah, because it'll be Julia Dreyfus will definitely be something to do with that big bad, because they've pushed her into enough things to make you realize she's not all good. But I don't know, Marvel movies make me think too hard.
And even with that, like, we got all these, these movies that have come out since COVID, or usually the TV shows too. Like, this has been jumbled. Like the first thing after all this wasn't supposed to be WandaVision. WandaVision was supposed to be later, and we were supposed to see her in Black Widow first, and then later see her in Captain America, or I should say, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But instead, we got reversed.
Yeah. And it still works.
Oh yeah,
like it's like the pieces of the story they're telling, they give you just enough information, but every time they don't give you the same information twice. So everything you find out is new information with all these pieces of media. Like everything is being told for a reason. I mean, I thought we were gonna get Fantastic Four in WandaVision. I don't know why I thought that. But for the longest time, I thought, this is going to be when the Fantastic Four appear, just as recurring characters or side characters in this in this crazy show. Like, I mean, WandaVision for me as well is so one of my favorite TV shows of all time is Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. They did a couple of seasons on Netflix, which is all weird and wonderful if you've not seen it. And the first 3 or 4 episodes of WandaVision really gave me heavy vibes of it. Not because it's a show that's set in different time zones, but it's kind of a show that's kind of set in this not alternate reality, but it's holistic. So it's things you can't really see and things that are weird and wonderful happening around you. And it was a bit of a mystery with WandaVision, and I was really attached to it. And for me, I think having WandaVision come out first, because it came out and it was so out there and so unlike anything anyone had ever seen on TV. Like, there is nothing on TV that has done a series where they've parodied different decades of television and told a narrative throughout the passing of time with it. Nothing's ever done that. And I think because they released it first, it definitely had way more impact than if they'd have put, Falcon and Winter Soldier out first, which is essentially a 6-hour Marvel film.
Yeah.
Not that that's a bad thing. It is just a 6-hour Marvel film. So yeah, the fact that it's technically the wrong order is a very good thing in my mind.
Even going back with WandaVision, not even just parodying like all those TV shows, but there's also all the inside references to the properties, like of like the comic Vision, the comic Scarlet Witch, or even like obviously like the big one when they get the X-Men version of her brother. Like,
ridiculous. And again, the format of it being a weekly recurring serial and not like an instantly consumable thing. I mean, it's now obviously for people, but where it's released, it's such a good cliffhanger to leave people wanting more. And you can only do that medium. You only tell that story in that kind of medium. Because if that was released as a Marvel movie, you'd know who it was within the next 25 minutes, whereas you had to wait 7 days and 25 minutes to find out who it was. And yeah, so much. There was that. I mean, obviously, Speed and Wiccan being a part of it. The West Coast Avenger body, being created, and just all these things that just, again, more suspense. Just good TV.
Kind of to change topics here.
Yes, please do.
I mean, we could talk MCU forever.
Yeah.
But what was it like being a wrestling fan in England? Because the one thing that I always hear, and it seems to be a thing, I just don't know I don't think we could do the same thing, is the fact of like, if you want to watch anything live, you have to stay up till pretty late at night.
Yeah. So I could give a brief history. So I don't really remember what the first thing I saw was, but the first thing I remember watching was the Triple Cage match with David Arquette. Okay. That's the very first thing I remember from wrestling. So we had, if you want to watch wrestling live, you'd have to stay up till 1 a.m. It was on a premium sports channel. WWF was on a premium sports channel. WCW was on like a semi-premium cable channel, but it wasn't live. You could see it on the following Friday at like prime time or something like that. So WCW was super easily accessible. So I'd basically never watched Raw, but I used to get by watching things like Metal and Jacked and those shows that are on Saturday mornings, Shotgun and all those kind of things. We used to have the big four were free on free TV. So we'd have, in the UK, there's like 5 free TV stations, channel 1 through 5. And channel 4 had Rumble, Mania, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series completely free, just at 1 a.m. and with ads. It was really weird format. So staying up to watch wrestling when I was like 7, 8 years old. Well, I remember, again, staying up to watch wrestling when I was 9 years old. I watched the Royal Rumble 2000, which had the Miss Rumble contest in it with Mae Young. So that's burned into my 9-year-old memory. But yeah, watching anything pay-per-views live, it became a thing. I mean, like wrestling was cool in the UK until about 2002, and then it wasn't. And then when I was when I was like 14, 15, kind of getting back into wrestling. There was like 2 other kids in my school that were really into it. So we'd watch it. We'd go to one of their houses. We'd watch wrestling till 1 a.m. and just sleep. I don't think since I was maybe 20 years old, I've watched anything live other than the big 4 and maybe a couple takeovers. And with those, I watched them on a call with a friend of mine. So watching wrestling at 1 a.m., not something great. But TNA was huge in the UK. TNA was ridiculously huge in the UK to the point where, like, the reason I became a wrestler is because of British Boot Camp when Rockstar Spud won the tournament. So again, another thing. Sorry, we had like a fight. The Fight Network had a channel in the UK on premium cable TV. But they had a bunch of old school indie wrestling. So for me, that's how I got into Ring of Honor, CCW, AIW, Full Impact Pro, like a bunch of indies, but also had a bunch of UK indies, including Spud. So when I see scrawny little Spud getting signed to a TNA contract, I was like, man, it's time to do that myself. So I did. And then more recently, as far as like indies in the UK go, there was like a real surge of indie wrestling in the UK about the time that I started, like 2012, 2013-ish. And it's because Progress Wrestling started up, which is where I trained when I began. And then English football fans, like soccer fans, are a different breed of people. They're very loud, obnoxious, drunk. So what happened is all the people that were like my age who watched wrestling decided they wanted to get back into it, but this time they were of drinking age and they were loud, obnoxious, and drunk. So wrestling became super cool in the UK again in like 2012, 2013. And everyone was going to like live shows and stuff like Progress, Rev Pro, ICW, all these kind of ones. And kind of WWE was a bit of a, not a dirty word, I'd say, but like it just kind of wasn't what people cared about. And like there was this kind of underground wrestling movement in the UK. And then NXT UK came along, and now there isn't a huge underground following in the UK anymore. And I don't know if that's just because of COVID, to be honest. But I think because a lot of the talent kind of got signed to NXT UK, UK now is in like rebuilding process. So give it a few years. When I go back, there'll be a huge homecoming for me. So
yeah, it does seem like that. NXT UK really killed a lot of the momentum that was going on over there. But if history can repeat itself, you had a lot of stuff like on the independent scene over here of WWE signs up all these big names, but then some bigger names end up taking their place. Or I should say some names who will become bigger names take their place, and it just starts to be a cycle. And I think when basically you kind of get rated the way that you were, that the UK scene's going to take a hit, but eventually they'll come back.
Yeah, I mean, even if you think about WWE recently and like a bunch of the guys that they signed in 2020 and let go this year, the list of talent that they just released this year and the quality of talent is insane. Obviously, we've seen a bunch of them kind of hit the ground running when they've got to the indies, like Anthony Green and Alex Zane and those guys. So it just kind of goes to show that we all know WWE has like this huge roster of just wanting to sign the best wrestlers in the world when they can to make sure they have them. But then eventually there'll come a time when they do have to wrestle. So I'm sure that when a bunch of those UK guys do come back to the UK scene, they'll start bringing a lot of that interest with them. Because we lost a bunch of the top guys, like even not just to NXT UK, but guys like Ospreay and Zack going to Japan as well was a big thing. And it's just there's a thing in football as well, in English football, where and you probably get this in college sports as well, where clubs will turn out generations and generations of talented players until they can't anymore because they don't have the facilities to train players, because all the players have now moved on to other teams because the 30th best club churns out players that are top 10 club worthy. They're not going to stay around in the top 30 club, and eventually the top 30 club needs to find itself again. It's nearly midnight. It's a weird analogy, I know.
Wasn't for a while the TNA pay-per-views, and this is like going back to like the early 2010s, like weren't they free over there. I don't exactly say free. If I would get corrected, it was on a paid channel, but you weren't paying exactly to be a pay-per-view.
Yeah, so the channel that aired TNA in the UK would just air the specials as well on the Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
TNA was so huge in the UK to the point where if they charged for the pay-per-views, people would have bought it, but they didn't. And I think that's possibly why it was huge, because of that accessibility. TNA, huge. And then obviously in recent years, they've just not scaled. They've scaled back their international marketing a lot. So,
well, they've changed, owners and management, and I mean that's going to happen. Like literally, there were times where like they do one set of tapings and it's owned by, or I should say, run by Billy Corgan, and then the next tapings it isn't, and it's somebody else, and then they take all these storylines and like change them. Like some of them they would continue as normal, but there were some that like had a definitely like a different direction. We just took a sharp right out of nowhere.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those things where I think TNA is now in that rebuilding, well, possibly in that rebuilding phase, but with the forbidden door stuff and everyone kind of working together now, it's just a different kind of market. So,
I mean,
we'll see.
I don't know if I've said it here on the show. I know I've said it elsewhere. What I've wanted to see for a while, especially when AEW was first announced, is to see all these companies just start working together. Cause it's like, okay, if you're TNA, Impact, or like, we couldn't beat WWE head to head. We tried. Mm-hmm. We didn't even, make a dent in them. But if we take all of our assets and put them together, not to say like we're going to form one company, but we find a way to battle them as a unit, that could do some damage. And like, I don't necessarily think we've seen 100% that, but if you would get to where that forbidden door is just kind of anybody can pop up anywhere, like almost going back to the territory days, I think like that adds like an element that obviously isn't new, but is fresh because we hadn't seen it in a long time.
I feel like that's what a lot of them are realizing now, is that they can still maintain a lot of their identity as an individual kind of promotion, but also being this kind of conglomerate of working with other promotions doesn't compromise them in any way, because they still have their own market and they still have their own niche, and their niche is being not WWE, essentially. That's purely because WWE is a billion-dollar company that has the most media presence in the world, and anything that isn't is just an alternative. And it doesn't matter, TNA isn't the six-sided ring cross the line promotion anymore, and Ring of Honor isn't the shake hands before every match, respect the code of honor promotion anymore. But they are all viable alternatives. And now that they kind of realize that their strength is being something different and being just that vague about it, like, maybe we'll see. We'll give it a few more years and we'll see how things look, because it is a very cool time to be a wrestling fan.
And I know it's not the most popular company in the world, or at least, over here, but the fact that they have pro wrestling tees, like that literally, I mean, granted, like how that was built over time, but now like that being this central part of not only independent wrestling, but you have it where a lot of these companies, that's where they're putting their merchandise. And it's just like, well, we're going to do it this way. And they're putting out a lot of product. I would love to see a comparison of what WWE ships out in a day to what Pro Wrestling Tees does. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's very close.
Yeah, it's got to be comparable, because again, I feel like the market that WWE has for people who buy their merch is a completely different market to the ones that buy independent wrestlers merch. There's not a lot of like kids at indie shows that are buying t-shirts, posters, pictures, etc. But there are a lot of families who watch WWE who are going, well, my kid wants a Roman Reigns t-shirt, let's ship that. So, but the kids aren't on the money, so take all the adults' money.
One thing I want to touch on before we start to wrap things up and get into the Fave 5 questions, and I didn't realize this until doing a little bit of research, but you got married in COVID.
Yeah, that's crazy. The whole story is mad. and I can tell the entire story. So we got engaged way before COVID, which was very nice. Actually, no, we got engaged when COVID was a buzzword on social media. Whatever, we were in Portugal when we got engaged, and I mean, for people who haven't got engaged, like, I think people don't realize just that there's a certain amount of pre-plan that goes into being engaged as well. So I feel like we were quite lucky. We had like an idea of like, oh well, when we do get married, this is kind of like what we'd like. So we were like, cool, the kind of rough idea, and kind of got engaged, finished our vacation, kind of got home. So all right, cool, and we were super efficient because Eden is, incredibly smart, far too smart to be with someone like me, incredibly efficient as well. So we made these big plans. Cool venue, everything. COVID shut the world down a month or so later. We were like, oh crap, what does this mean for our wedding? And then they announced in the UK that you can get married with a crowd of up to 10 people. Okay, cool, fine. So we whittled that guest list down to 10 people. And they were like, oh no, that 10 people includes whoever performs your service, any photographers, and yourselves. Great. So we whittled that down to 7 guests or something. And then they said, oh, you can actually have a wedding for up to 50 people. Great. We thought, well, let's invite 50 people. Let's plan a wrestling show at our wedding because, by this point that we planned, there'd been no wrestling for 5 months. We were kind of getting a bit of an itch for wrestling. And I mean, if you're friends and family with wrestlers and you're not a wrestler, like, we all know you want to see them beat each other up. We all know that. So maybe 10 days before the ceremony, they announce 25 guests capacity. Not a problem. Fine. Sorry, you guys can't come. They announce 10 guests capacity, not including yourselves and photographers and staff. Great. Then the venue says, you can't have a wrestling show here because COVID restrictions, blah, 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 blah. Great. So I tell the talent they're not needed, and I'll see them when I come back to the UK whenever. We realized that we didn't have to spend, because we kind of did a lot of things in good faith. People were like, hey, we understand that COVID's a thing. We're not going to ask for a deposit because we don't think it's going to be cancelled. So we're very fortunate we have a lot of really good people in our lives that gave us that kind of deal. We decided to then spend all that money on karaoke machines, Dance Revolution, and a bunch of other weird stuff. And we basically got married in front of 10 of our closest family and friends. We weren't even sure if people were allowed to do speeches at the ceremony. So I surprised my best friend by telling him to do a speech on the spot, which he wasn't happy about. And when we got married, it ended up being, it's a wedding. It ended up being great anyway. But all the stress leading up to it, was crazy. There were things like when we had to get our wedding license, which we had to book an appointment weeks in advance for because it's getting a wedding license, but also because COVID. Some of the things that I presented weren't adequate enough, and but we got there in the end. So the pictures and stuff they're on a flash drive somewhere, and it sounds very dismissive that we don't have them with us, but I honestly think it's because we forgot them and we left them in the UK. So there is that. But I think our basic plan at this point is to eventually have a reception, which those original 50 guests are more than welcome to come to, kind of thing. But yeah, incredibly stressful time leading up to it. But as I say, it's a wedding, and kind of the basic conversation that it boiled down to is the most important parts about the wedding is the two of us, and we were going to be there. We ended up having a laptop set up with a Zoom call, had about 25 people who managed to tune in on Zoom and watch us get married, which was really nice. Our coach, who's like one of our best friends, like he was on the Zoom call wearing a suit and tie, and just like, a bunch of people were dressed up as well, but he's someone that it's like he's done so much for us personally as well. Like seeing him there dressed up like was really cool. Not to diminish all the various other people that we love the most in our lives that were there, but yeah, good stuff. Haven't really thought about how weird it was for a while, so that was good. But it's our anniversary in from the date of recording 8 days. Yeah.
Do you know how I know that?
So that's 6 days.
Do you know how I know that?
How's that?
I mean, besides, I did happen to find something about the date, and I think it's crazy. Your anniversary is going to be 1 day before mine.
There you go. We had some of our friends back home at the exact same thing as well. Their anniversary was the 29th as well, and they ended up getting married on the 31st because they went, well, Halloween, I guess. So there you go. So now I'll remember that. So I'll wish you guys a happy anniversary as well.
You'll have to wait till next year because I got to get married first.
Oh yeah.
That'll be in 9 days. That's how I know, because I know the 1 day difference. I'm like 8 days.
Yeah. So I'll just wish you well, because I'm sure you'll be on social media on that day, because you won't have a bunch of other things to do or anything.
Oh, of course not.
That's the other thing that just I didn't realize is just how busy you are on your own wedding, and there were only 10 guests for us, you know.
Oh yeah.
So I'm sure you'll love it. I'm sure you'll have a great time.
Yeah, I'm kind of just waiting for everything to be over type thing.
Yeah, that's a big part of it as well. It's I guess, do you have like just like stress and worries about going in, and just, even though I'm sure everything will be fine, it's just a case of when it's done, there's nothing to worry about anymore.
Well, it's just kind of getting everything over with, because there's just a lot of stress going into it. Yeah. And then even going back to what we were talking about earlier, literally the day after our wedding is the Browns-Steelers game that we're going to.
Yes.
So it's this, like, I don't know what condition I'll be in after Saturday night. I'm not a huge drinker, but with it being my wedding, I could go a little bit out of my comfort level. But then going to the Browns-Steelers game, doing tailgating beforehand, I don't know how tired I'm going to be for all of that, and how drunk I could technically get for all of that. But we did talk about, like, afterwards, we're just going to pretty much relax the rest of the day, and I have all of Monday off because we're not taking a honeymoon.
Yeah, that was the other thing as well. We couldn't take a honeymoon either because of COVID, so I can relate on that. My advice for you, because on the alcohol front, make sure you eat something throughout the day, because it wasn't until I think our meal was at like 6 p.m. I realized I hadn't eaten all day, but I had drank throughout the day. So that would be my one piece of advice on that. But yeah, you will be very tired, but it'll be very worth it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll prepare to eat and try to drink water throughout the day too.
Yes, there you go. The thought I should have said that I didn't say.
I think mainly because, I mean, I have learned that if you drink water while you drink, you're going to lessen your chance of a hangover.
Yeah, so there was weirdly, like, I don't remember where the quote's from, but I know it's from Chris Jericho. But he says his favorite thing to drink is a vodka orange juice with ice cubes, because the water in the ice cubes stops him from getting a hangover. And it kind of, I was like, oh yeah, drinking water will help. Why have I never realized this? So for everything he's done for wrestling, and everything he's done since wrestling, and everything controversial he's done, Chris Jericho reminded me to drink water. So thanks, Chris.
I don't know how old that is from him, but I know also from Chris Jericho, because I technically listened to one of his books. He talked about, at least at that point, and I mean, this was 2015, I want to say, when I listened to the audiobook. So whatever book came out around that time, he talked about drinking vodka and water, and he called them yeah boys. And he would, if that's all he drank, because he drank alcohol with water, he was fine.
I'll try that next time. Maybe because it's vodka, so it doesn't taste great anyway. But that's what's preventing me from ever drinking it, because I'm like, oh, that kind of sounds interesting, but
I understand it's watered down vodka, but it's still vodka. Yeah. I don't know if that's what I want.
I'll try it and let you know.
All right, let's get into the Fave 5 questions.
Hey, this is Booker T, 5-time champ, and this is the Fave 5 questions. Now, can you dig it?
All right, let's start off with question number 1. How do you like your steak cooked?
So it depends on the steak, I guess. I mean, like if I had a choice, I like thin cut steak for like a cheesesteak. That's how I best like steak. But I mean, otherwise it's medium. I don't know if you guys have a different word for medium steak here. But
No, I think I'm hoping that's worldwide. Yeah, it's
yeah.
For
Between
me,
rare and well done. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, between rare and well done, then you have medium rare and medium well.
Yes, there you go.
For me, I'm a medium well guy. I'm not medium well,
There you
medium rare. I like medium rare.
There you go. Yeah, it depends. Sometimes if I've been there before, I'll be happy to get it a bit more pink. If it's a new place, I'll always get it medium.
I think that's kind of how I am with basically medium rare. And it's got to a point where I just kind of stick with it to where I don't know how good you're going to cook a rare steak. So I'm just going to take a precaution and say medium rare.
Yeah. It should just be one. Yeah. Complaints. Yes.
Question number 2, and this kind of goes with something we talked about earlier. MCU or Star Wars?
I was a huge Star Wars fan as a kid. Absolutely huge. And I don't know at what point that fell off. Because I still haven't seen Rise of Skywalker. I haven't seen Rogue One. I haven't watched The Mandalorian all the way through. And it's not that I don't enjoy it. It's just not gripped me as much as the MCU, right? So it's going to have to be MCU because, again, other than What If, I've watched every single property as soon as I could.
Yes, for me, Star Wars is just something I could never get hardcore into. Like, I didn't watch the original Star Wars movies until they did a re-release in the 90s in the theaters. And the only one I seen in the theater, which was technically the first one I started off with, was The Empire Strikes Back. But later I went back and rewatched the other two on VHS.
Yeah.
Liked them, was somewhat into them, but like there was never that connection. And for me, like when it came to like sci-fi stuff, I could never find a great connection up until literally the first episode I ever watched of Doctor Who, which was Christopher Eccleston's first episode, because I just decided to start from that first season of that run and fucking fell in love. And I actually did feel a connection where I'm like this is my sci-fi. It was never Star Wars, but I can watch it. It was never Star Trek, and I could watch kind of it, but I don't know. I definitely didn't sink into it. But with Doctor Who, I felt it.
Do you have a favorite Who episode?
I am a sucker for almost any episode from Matt Smith that was written by Stephen Moffat.
Yeah.
Most importantly, the 2-part episodes. Almost every 2-part episode is so good.
Okay. I'm trying to think of what would be the best one.
It's not an episode, but Time of the Doctor, I think, is great. The thing that I loved about that was because that was the 50th anniversary episode.
Yes, it's Christmas special.
Or no, Christmas special was Time of the Doctor. What was the Day of the Doctor? They did that.
Yeah. Yes.
They did those 3 episodes in a row, technically, of like Blank of the Doctor. And I got it mixed up. Yeah, the Regeneration was Time of the Doctor, but Day of the Doctor, yeah, that one.
Yeah.
So good. Thing that I loved about it was simulcast at the same time around the world. So like everybody got to, like if you were watching the TV at that time, like we all got to live it.
Yeah.
And then a couple days later, I went to go see it in the theater in 3D, and it was like that's when those paintings looked really cool.
That's very cool.
Did you figure out a favorite episode for you?
I mean, mine's. Everyone says "Don't Blink." Is like, I mean, that's like the go-to popular one.
I mean, going with what you said earlier, like that's the like one that like can stand on its own. Like you don't have to watch any episode of Doctor. Like I've always heard that's the litmus test for people. If you like it enough, go back to Eccleston and watch it.
I guess maybe Fires of Pompeii is a good one as well.
Yeah.
Like I was having this conversation about Who with someone recently, and what's great about Who is that if you hear the title of an episode, you know what it is because the titles always sum up exactly what happens, and the episodes are all generally such unique stories that The Girl in the Fireplace is another episode. Like these all just you can tell. The Runaway Bride, like yeah, good series. I'm glad we didn't talk about that first because that would be another hour.
I had Doctor Who down as a topic, but I avoided it because I did have, I think, a long conversation with Eden about it.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to do like a complete repeat.
Yep, that's fair.
Well, with that
now they filmed last of Jodie Whittaker's episodes, so that's worth. I feel like I didn't see a huge amount of her stuff, but I think her final season should be quite good. So the writing's going to be different.
I haven't seen any of it, and I have her first season on DVD. I eventually need to like watch it.
Yeah, not awful, but there's some real good moments. There's I think it was the Christmas episode 2020. It's called Spyfall, which is a James Bond 2-part episode. Was it Christmas? No, it was January 1st. There you go. That's the best episode she did. So that's my recommendation.
Who's your favorite Doctor?
I think David Tennant or Tom Baker. Tennant because was the Doctor that definitely hooked me as a fan. But Tom Baker is also such a big figure in like British TV and comedy. So like he's just, everything he's done is because of his work on Who. And even though like I've not seen everything he did, I just appreciate the episodes I have seen with him in.
Yeah, I have the smaller version of Tom Baker's scarf on my desk.
Very cool.
But for me, it's Matt Smith.
Yeah.
It was like Tennant, I should say, you can go back to Eccleston is the one that like really got me interested. I think like his first season is terribly underrated. Like, is it cheesy? Yes. Does a lot of the stuff not really age well? No, but I think it's them trying to, going back to like the MCU, like they're trying to find their niche. They're trying to find how they're going to be Doctor Who, and they hadn't done it in a couple decades. So it took all of his series to really work out a lot of the kinks. And then you get to where David Tennant comes on and he hits the stride for the show. And I always say the end of his first season, the whole bit of, Daleks versus Cybermen is what sucked me in.
Yeah.
But when I got to Matt Smith's episodes, I fell in love. And a lot of it was Moffat's writing. Because even like I love the Silence in the Library for Tennant, where we get introduced to River Song.
Yes.
And like I remember, like I'll go back and rewatch those 2 episodes. Those are great. But there's just that something with Moffat's writing. Like I love it. Like I know a lot of people hate him, and I'm like, I don't know. Like I'm a fan. He sucks me in.
He I feel like his writing style. He's very good at writing one shots because he's very good at making heroes seem like heroes. Because I hate what he did with Sherlock, because the show's not necessarily about Sherlock. It shouldn't be about Sherlock being a superhero, know it all. Everything comes together because I say this. But with Who, you can kind of get away with it because he's an alien who's lived for thousands of years. It's kind of fine. So especially his stuff on Sherlock I dislike, but again, he's very good at making. I think if you look at every Who episode individually that he wrote, they're all good one shots. So,
and another great episode, Van Gogh.
Oh goodness! So, we actually a couple of years ago went to Amsterdam and visited the museum in Amsterdam. And the two of us immediately said, "Wow, this is just like in Doctor Who." Even but it really is. It's like they being in that museum. The way then thinking back to how they captured his character and his story just in that hour-long episode is really, really good. And I mean, and also stories of real human emotion. Stories of depression are like that. Like Iron Man 3 as well. Like they're stories that need to be told, and when they're done right, they're so good, especially the episode.
All right, let's move on. Question number 3: favorite cereal.
I was talking about cereal today, actually. So I think you have Cocoa Pops over here. They're like chocolate Rice Krispies.
We have. Ours is Cocoa Krispies.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly that. Yeah, that's the one. Or Frosted Flakes are like the two. But I haven't had cereal in so long. I used to be the kind of person that would go through a box of cereal over a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when I discovered how good almond milk and oat milk are with cereal. And then I'd spend more money on buying nut milks and cereal. But yeah, I'm a big sweet fan. Those would be my tied for first. What about you? Any recommendations?
I'm a huge fan of Golden Grams.
Oh, strong contender actually.
And they're like kind of going with it. There's I think they still have it out. It's by Post. It's a s'more cereal. And it's basically,
that sounds great.
It's Golden Grams with Cocoa Puffs with marshmallows.
That sounds real good.
Oh, it is great.
I'm going to write that down. It's my first cereal back in a while.
I went back and listened to a little bit of my conversation with Eden, and they mentioned Shreddies. Like, we weren't talking about like just like for their favorite cereal, but just Shreddies. And actually, like, I realized I never Googled it. And I'm like, oh, okay. It's exactly what they said it was. It's basically Chex.
Yes, it's exactly that. Yeah. Yeah, Chex. I'm not sure if Chex is frosted here, but you'd have, sugar coated Shreddies. That's another good one.
Why don't we have that? Because I don't think Chex is sugar. Like, it's just like depending on like what the cereal itself is supposedly made of. If I'm correct, it's been a while since I've had Chex, but I don't remember. Did we have frosted Chex? Like, great. Now I gotta like double check the cereal aisle.
I mean, I've had Chex Mix quite recently, and I know the Chex in there is unseasoned. I guess that's the word for it. But that's because everything else in the bag is for the flavor.
Yeah. All right. Question number 4: pancakes or waffles?
Pancakes every time, on the basis that every waffle iron I've ever owned has not been my friend. But also pancakes. So the UK pancakes are crepes, just real thin. They're crepes, real thin, and then you top them with whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I do love American style pancakes. Like, that's even before we came over here. That'd be the way. And when I was really into trying to get into shape for wrestling as well, like protein pancakes was everything. Every big muscly bodybuilder on YouTube was posting.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd get into the thicker pancakes and the fluffier pancakes, and yeah, they just hit the spot.
And let's see, question number 5: coffee or energy drinks?
I'm a massive caffeine fiend. So I don't drink a huge amount. Oh no, that's a lie. There is energy drinks in every door of the car in case I need one on a road journey. So my weekends are full of energy drinks, but I probably drink more coffee because we tend to hit up Dunkin' a couple times a week. And so I'll just have a large coffee that'll take me a day to consume, because American coffee's super, well, Dunkin' specifically is very sweet. But I really fell in love with Bang, because we don't have Bang in the UK. Like, the energy drink brands we have is just kind of Rockstar and Monster. And I looked up that Bang is banned from sale in the UK because...
Whoa.
But it's not for anything weird. It's because in part of their advertising, they say that... I don't have a can with me, but it's something like... there's a line that says, helps you build muscle or something on the Bang. But like an independent study showed that you'd need to consume 1,000 cans of Bang in a day for it to have any effect on your muscle growth. But obviously that would result in death.
Yeah,
because it's 1,000 cans of Bang. So yeah, they can't sell it in Europe because it doesn't match European advertising laws. But the chemicals and stuff are all fine, so it's fine. So I'm gonna go with energy drink because Bang changed my life. Yeah.
God, that sounds like the whole Jelly Baby thing about how they're illegal here.
Is that because of colorings or something?
That's what I believe I found out at one point. I mean, that's the thing about like looking on Google, and I've looked on it a bunch, and I always get like different sites throughout the years. But I want to say it is because some of the coloring in it isn't FDA approved, and
it makes sense.
I think I remember one of the last times I looked it up, it actually explained like why the particular chemical wasn't FDA approved. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, I understand now. It's just like, oh, I understand like that, why that's your reasoning.
Yeah.
But it's still just candy. It's fine. There's a whole continent over there eating it.
It's like the whole, did you guys have, I mean, we called them Kinder eggs. I don't know what you guys did call them, but they're like the chocolate eggs with like a kid's toy in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and those are banned for sale in the US. I guess they're choking hazards or something.
Only with the toy. We had, there was something by Nestle. I forget exactly what it was called, but I remember when it first came out where it was basically like a plastic ball with shell chocolate around it, and then when you open up the ball, like there's like a little toy inside.
Yeah.
Kinder has kind of creeped into the United States over the past 3 or 4 years to where like we get, I think, Kinder Joy, but I think the inside might be candy or something. I remember when I first seen them, I bought them because I was just like, oh my God, we got Kinder. That's weird. Why do we have Kinder? But I want to say, I swear I had one with a toy in it, and that was recently. With like when there's these set of years that I'm talking about, not like years ago. Oh, the Nestle thing was the Wonder Ball. That's what it was called.
That sounds familiar. Yeah. Like Kinder's good chocolate. Like, I guess you guys have like Milka and stuff over here as well. That's like the same kind of chocolate. But I have a big thing with, I always wondered why I didn't like the taste of Hershey's, and like, I know what it tastes different because it's made with soured milk, which is like not a thing in the UK because we just make it with regular milk.
Mm-hmm.
But it's weird because Hershey's in the UK is just made with regular milk and it's pretty good. So when I came over here and I'm buying bags of Kisses and don't want to even eat one, I'm going to go home and I'm going to just buy a bunch of Hershey's just out of spite.
You need to bring me back. I want a Nestle. Nestle Kit Kat, because over here they're made by Hershey.
Okay.
And I want to know if there's what the difference is. Like the only Nestle Kit Kats we can get here are at World Market, and it's they're normally selling a lot of the crazy I don't want to say crazy, but some of the Japanese flavors.
Yeah, the matcha and the wasabi flavored Kit Kat as well.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, our old housemate, she likes really weird stuff, so she likes the wasabi Kit Kat, and as much as we love her and miss her, just not for me,
Mm-hmm. And then obviously bring back Jelly Babies, please.
Oh yes, yep, that's my list. Kit Kat, Jelly Babies.
And the crazy thing going back to it, like Doctor Who is like the reason why I freaking wanted them. I'm like, I want to try them, and then when I had them, I'm like, oh my God, these are great.
It's just one you can't have. That's the thing, is if they're really available, they'll probably be just fine. Yeah,
kind of. That's the sad thing, because like, there's a lot of food stuff with that where there are kind of restaurants. Like, for example, Raising Cane's. Every time that I used to be in Columbus, I used to make sure I grabbed some. Then they added one in Kent, which isn't that far from me. I've only been there somewhere between 4 or 5 times over the last like handful of years since they built that one. And then literally a couple of weeks ago, they built one down the road from me. Haven't been there yet.
Yeah, there's actually a Raising Cane's maybe 10 minutes from us as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've still never been. Like, my whole thing at the moment as well with chain restaurants especially is I'm like, well, we're going to be here in a few months. We can still eat it then. But I do miss Nando's, which is like my big... there are Nando's restaurants in the US as well. They're just 50% of them are in Illinois. So I bet by the time I go home and eat that Nando's, it's going to be just fine.
All right. Question number 6. And we kind of talked about it earlier, and I think it's perfect. The fact that I'm getting married next week, and what wedding marriage advice do you have for me?
As I say, like we've only been married a year, so I can't give much advice because a lot of my experience is around, I don't know, leaving the country and trying to become a wrestler in a completely different place. But again,
so what you're telling me is I should move to England and become a lorry driver. Got it.
There you go. Yeah, there's actually a shortage of them right now, so you'd probably find a job quite easily.
I just got to drive on the left side of the road.
Yeah, on the correct side. There you go. Yeah, like I said earlier, I mean, the best advice would be the wedding day it's going to be very long. It's going to be very tired, but it's going to be very worth it. Just make sure you eat, make sure you drink some water, make sure when things stay stressful, you just remember it's not about getting it over and done with. It's about what it means. And like I say, when you're feeling tired and when you're feeling stressed, because like I know you are right now, and you will be. It's just about remembering the light at the end of the tunnel, for lack of a less cliched phrase. But it'll be worth it. And it'll be good. And when it is over and done with, you'll kind of wish it had lasted a bit longer as well, because it's very cool. But obviously, we're not actually married. Don't tell Twitter. We're actually brother and sister. Remember?
People actually think that?
Too many people think that. Too many people.
I remember the first time I spoke to Eden, I accidentally said brother and sister, but I caught myself because there was just, I think when we find those tag teams or whatever that are same last name, it is a brother sister thing, but I know for a fact you're not.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, when we first started teaming, we joked about it as like, we didn't ever say it. We joked about it like, because when we first teamed up, Game of Thrones was still on TV, and the Lannisters were the biggest villains on TV at the time. Well, Cersei was at least. So we were just kind of maybe taking liberal inspiration from that a little bit, just to have a bit of fun. But no, we aren't related. But even when we got here, Mikey Montgomery, it took him about 3 months to realize that we weren't related. So bless him.
I mean, you're related, but not by blood.
There we go. Yes. Yeah. There is no shared blood in our systems.
So then what you probably should have done was kissed Eden in front of him to really just fuck with him.
Yeah. I mean, part of our deal back in the UK is we used to have a huge public displays of affection in the ring. But it got exhausting to be that much all the time. So yeah. Again, I'll say it again. We're not siblings.
Or that was a really weird wedding.
Yes, it's funny how the family of both sides of this the same people. Oh, weird that.
And like, what side do we sit on? Just is there like a middle section for us?
Yeah, I don't think I have any more jokes. I tried to think of one, but. I tried.
All right. Any final thoughts or last minute plugs before we go?
I got nothing to say, nothing to add. I think. I mean, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure seeing you and speaking to you. So I'm happy to do it. I say it's midnight and I'm quite tired, and I wish I could be addressing you under less tired circumstances. But I'll thank my PT Kingsley for that. It's his fault that I'm like this. So. And as far as upcoming apps, just half-priced apps at Applebee's. That's all I got.
How about your social media?
Oh, yeah, you can find me everywhere at Sid Von Engeland. Don't go digging through the media tweets, and that's the good place to be. And
help you get above 2,000 followers before Riley Rose.
Yeah, please do. I've already got a big head start on Riley Rose because no one likes Riley Rose because he's Irish, and everyone knows that Irish are just not very good English people. That's controversial right there. I'm not taking it back though. I'll fight them. I'll fight them all. And of course, you can find myself at jsummers330 on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, much like you can find the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Facebook.com/WrestlingCheers, Twitter.com/WrestlingCheers, and Instagram.com/WrestlingCheers. Email, if you so choose to desire, WrestlingCheers@gmail.com, and we have the merch store over at whatamaneuver.net. Like I said at the beginning of the show, please rate, review, and subscribe your ever listen to this fine podcast, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Amazon Music, or Podbean, WrestlingCheers.podbean.com. Check out our friends on the Trending Topics Network, such as All Beer Inside, Eurovision Showcase, and the Spanish Announce Table. Check out our other podcast friends, such as Pod Van Dam, Super Fantastic Podcast, It's Evolution, Baby, The IndieCast, Sobros Network, Biff Radio, Game Marks Podcast, Powerbomb Jitsu, Spotlight Series, Fully Posable, Doing the Favor, Positively Pro Wrestling, IWTV Guide, If You Catch My Grift, At Odds with Wrestling, Best in the World Podcast, Marks with Mikes, This Ends at Prom, and Porch Talk. And check out our other non-podcasting friends, such as Thrift Store Jobber, The Savage Dash, The Mystery Men, Redline Radio, Mouse's Wrestling Adventures, VHS Party, Tonight on Instagram, Happy Hour with Steve Guy, The Co-Host Wrestling Show,
Good Company, Heart of Gold, Toy Hi-Yo Toy Show, Time Capsule Toys, Stay Tough, Wrestle Void, Midwest Territory, Southern Underground Pro, and the official graphic designer of Wrestling Cheers, Moy Boy Designs. Before we go, allow us to announce our special promo code from Smokin' Jay's Barbecue. If you're making an order with them, I believe this might be in person, give them the promo code CHEERS, save 10% on your bill. Now, that will do it for us here on Wrestling Cheers, where everybody knows your name, especially when you're a bloody wanker. Later.
Wow.
It's the Wrestling Cheers. Get up on your feet, brightening your day in the middle of the week. And you gotta love the show. Yeah, you know it holds a title for the best podcast talking wrestling in Ohio. Finishing a cold one, take a load off. We ain't all about the prohibition like Josh, so we cheers. And then we sit back. Other shows are in the trash, kinda like they Nick Stapp. Like the name is Matt Justice, wearing all the gold. Wrestling Cheers is coming to a close. The #1 podcast going in the game. And one day everybody's gonna know the name. It's the Wrestling Cheers. This is Platinum Max, signing off. Ohio, good night. The world, good night. We love you. We'll see you next week.